Okay, so I've had a couple of questions about how to calculate the ratios for all the firms once you have downloaded the data. So I here have Alaska Airlines, Republic, and Love, and I want to calculate the ratios for these airlines. Now I'm going to cover a few things in this video to help us do this. One thing I'm going to cover is naming worksheets, how to edit worksheets, how to edit multiple worksheets at once. I'm going to cover the indirect function. I'm going to cover the direct function. And I'm also going to talk about naming ranges. So let's figure out how to name a worksheet. So the first thing I want to do is I want to name this worksheet as Love. I'm going to double click on sheet 6 and type LUV. I want to name this worksheet as Republic, so I'm going to type REJT for the ticker. And this one I'm going to name as ALK, so I double click on sheet 4 and name that as ALK. Now I've named all my worksheets. Now if I look at this, each worksheet is exactly the same. I start off with sales at A7 and I end at market value monthly at A64. And all the worksheets do exactly that. And every worksheet has the exact same values as the other worksheet in the exact same cells. So maybe I'd like to edit all of these at the same time. So I'm going to click on Alaska and I'm going to hit my shift button and click on Love. And notice here that my sheets have all turned white. They're no longer gray like they are over here. So now whatever I do in Alaska will also be happening in Republic and will also be happening in Love. So I just would like to separate these things so I can better see them. So this is my income statement. I'm going to bold that and I'm going to center it. I can center it by going to Home and then clicking Merge Center, and that will center that. Now if I go over to Republic, notice that it made the same change, and if I go over to Love, it has done the exact same thing there. I'm going to come down here and go to my balance sheet. I'm going to insert a couple of rows, and I'm going to call this, go ahead and show the dates again, or the years, and I'm going to call this balance sheet. I'm going to bold it and center it. And then I'm going to call this stuff over here. I'm going to insert a couple rows and call this Other. Now one thing I might be interested in doing, I'm going to go ahead and add the years here, is I might want to always know that everything up. I just click on another worksheet and now the other ones have turned gray. I'm going to start numbering this. This is just a reference point, not used for anything else but reference. I'm going to call this 1, and this will be 1 plus 1. And you'll see here in a bit that I'm labeling my rows. So I'm just numbering what rows I have here. And I'm also interested in doing my columns. So I'm going to insert, and I'm going to count 1 for my columns. And done my columns. And I'll later show you what this is for. Now the next thing we're going to do is name my data. And so I'm going to click this whole area right here, and I'm going to call that American by clicking up here and typing it in and pressing enter. And if I click here, A-OK, I see that as an option. If I pick it, it will select the whole thing. I'm going to do that for each and every airline, making sure that I start off at the same point for every one. Oh crap, I got to insert a row here so that they're perfectly lined up. There. Now I'm going to start here. I'm going to highlight it. And do them exactly the same for each one. I'm going to name this. And I'll name the other one as love. So now let's go ahead and calculate the ratios. So I'm going to name this worksheet here as ratios. And I want to count maybe the profit margin. And I want to do that for Love, Republic, and Alaska. Maybe I want to calculate return on equity. And again, do the same thing for those three airlines. I want to calculate return on assets. And do that for the same three airlines. I'm only going to do this for these three, but you should be able to get the point going forward. Now notice here the profit margin is defined as net income divided by sales. Return on equity is net income divided by equity. And return on assets is net income divided by assets. You don't need to put these in here. I'm just doing them for your own sake. Now I'm going to use a function called the indirect function first. Because I've named all those cells, I can use the indirect function to retrieve that whole named area. So if I type in indirect and I click love, it will give me that mistake. But I can show the whole array by hitting F2, by selecting it. Hitting F2 allows me to edit the cell, and then I press Control Shift Enter. And I can see everything that is in love. Now for this one, I want to take the net income, which I don't see here, and divide it by the sales. Let me go ahead and go back to Alaska where I numbered. I see that net income is in row 22 and sales is in row 2. So I'm going to put in my denominator right here. And my numerator here. So my numerator is, now let me do that the other way. My numerator and denominator. My numerator is 22. My denominator is 2. Now I'm going to use a function called the indirect function, or the direct function. So the index function. I want to use the index function. And I'm going to put an array in there. And now the array that I want to put in there is love. And I can use the indirect function and reference my word here, love, and that will return the whole love named range. Now out of that, I want, first of all, I want my numerator to be the income, which I'm going to put 22. And then I'll talk about my column here in a minute, but let's just put in 1 at first. Now I'm going to hit enter. And you can see that I have net income. But I don't want net income. I want the net income for December 8, which I can see here is in column 3. So instead of putting in column 1, I'm going to replace this with column 3. And there I get what my net income should be for 2009. Now notice here I have my numerator here, so I'm going to just go ahead and take this out and replace it with that. And I'm going to anchor it in. Now I know from my columns I want December, I want 09, 08, 09, 10, 11, 12, and 13, which is going to be column 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So up here, I can go ahead and put in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And those correspond to these following years. When you do this, just be careful of the year issue going here. Notice this is ending in 14, and this is ending in 13. I can fix that problem by just inserting a row like that and going forward. I'm sorry, I inserted the row in the wrong spot. There. Okay. All right. So now I can replace this with that value. And as I copy across, notice that I get the net income for each year. Now I'm going to go ahead and take that, and I'm going to go ahead and divide that by my denominator, which is 2. And there I have it. And if I copy down, I get my value. Actually, I should have done this. So I need to anchor my row here. Now that I've anchored my row, I just drag across and drag down, and it's calculated them all for me. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and copy this formula and paste it down here. Once I do that, notice that everything is correctly aligned up except for my numerator and denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these down and use new numerators and denominators. Now in this case, my numerator is still going to be net income. If I need to divide it by equity. And so if I come over here and I look, I can see that equity is row 56. I'm going to put in 56 in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag across and drag down. And notice that it calculated all those for me. I'm going to do the same thing for return on assets. If I come here, I notice that assets is in row 45. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, change the numerator, change the denominator, and I'm going to copy across, and I'm going to copy down. And so I've done those three ratios, and obviously it shouldn't be too hard to do the rest.